Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today, it's time for an SPFBO 9 finalist review, and not just any finalist review, but the final finalist. This is it. This is my last review for SPFBO number 9, and it has been so much fun and such a privilege to be part of this contest as a judge. I have had so many wonderful reads, including the one that I'm about to tell you about, which is The Last Ranger, book 1 in the Ranger of the Titan Wild series by J.D.L. Rosell. There will be no spoilers in this video. I would classify The Last Ranger as epic or high fantasy, which is really my wheelhouse. I love this sort of thing, to be quite honest with you, although I don't think that sways my judgment too much. I try to be as unbiased as possible in these assessments, but I really did enjoy this book, and I think it has a lot of merits. On the world of Unera, the 3 nations of the ancestral lands have colonized the Veiled Lands. Ilberia, which is somewhat reminiscent of Spain in its heyday, has established the colony of Baltisia. But the Veiled Lands, the colonized lands, supported people before this colonization took place, the Ghasts. These are much maligned, persecuted, and feared, especially as they employed their magic in the Titan War that preceded the story's present. In this present, we meet Leyen Firebrand, our protagonist. She is a Baltesian ranger of the Titan Wilds who, like many of her countrymen, grew up with a deep-seated hatred of the Ghasts. But when she witnesses the ultimate betrayal and embarks on a quest for vengeance, the shattering of her world means not only the questioning of her beliefs, but the embracing of a power within her that she has long denied. There's some really accomplished writing in The Last Ranger, I must say. The character work is also solid. Especially, I like how Rosell creates a character that I very much dislike for much of the book, for a lot of the book, and gradually I come to root for. This is a real accomplishment, and this is because Rosell takes his character on a convincing character arc that I found very compelling and also important in the sense that it shows a lot of great theme work as well, which I'll be talking about in a moment. The side characters are also very good in this story. I enjoyed my time with them. I would say that these characters are, for the most part, really solid and do their part very well in terms of helping the main character along her journey. Now, the world building is probably my favorite part of this book. It is epic fantasy, as I said. This is a really wonderful, beautifully described world. It is a fairly descriptive book by modern fantasy standards, which is, for me, a huge plus. Honestly, I feel like there's not enough description in most modern fantasy, so this was a relief. This was really like a warm bath for me, coming to J.D.L. Rosell's really capable description. I enjoyed it very much. I especially loved his descriptions of the forests. The descriptions of the forest, I think these are the parts of the book where not only the protagonist was most at home, but perhaps the author as well, just taking a wild guess. But just some lovely Sylvan descriptions in this book, but also a really good job with other locations as well. I also really enjoyed the shamanic magic that is in this book, and I assume will be developed even further in the series as a whole. I really loved I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but Drivans? I'm going to say Drivan. I think that's how I would say anyway. Magical creatures that I thought were really cool and employed some really interesting magic that I want to learn more about. If I were to continue with this series, I definitely would be on the lookout for them. But the Titan Wilds as a whole, just really beautifully described, really lovely forest stuff. I love it. Plus, the themes were really, I think, well done here, and they include prejudice. You have the character, as I said, who has deep-seated prejudice and hatred for another people, for an other. And interestingly, a people that has been their homeland was in fact raided and pillaged, and they were slaughtered by the invaders, the colonizers, and yet they're turned into the monsters. they're turned into the beasts. It's just a really interesting narrative and a very common one that you see with colonization when one power comes in, takes over territory, and excuses their barbarity by essentially otherizing the natives by calling them savages. It's kind of ironic, but there you go. That's human history for you, isn't it? You also have some really cool themes along with those colonization themes and the prejudice. You have faith in there is an interesting one that's being explored a little bit. I think you can see where that might be explored even more later in the series. Friendship is a really obvious one in there, and the importance of friends for finding one's path, for finding the one's moral bearings, for checking one's own prejudices. So this is an important role in the story, and making friends from foes as well. Found family is a bit of a theme here too. There's even a nice little animal companion. Big shout out to Feral the horse. Love it. Also, there's some really good political machinations in this tale, which I think will probably be increased in the rest of the series, would be my guess, based on where the ending was. And by the way, it's a very satisfying ending. It is part of a series, but I do think you could read this book as a standalone as well if you wanted to. It does, as I say, come to a good, feels like a complete conclusion with the promise of more to come, that sort of thing. So I think that's really well done. It will be a satisfying ending for you. And there are, no book is perfect. There are a few cons that I could come up with here. The plot conveniences in places did seem a little bit too pat. Villains showing up just at the right time in the right place, that sort of thing. Once in a while, I did have to, suspend my disbelief a little further here and there when it came to the timing of certain things. And not a big deal, really. There was some predictability, I would say, to the plot as well. If you're an epic fantasy reader, you're probably going to know where things are going more or less. But I enjoyed the journey anyway, even though I knew kind of, sort of, really where it was going. I really did enjoy the journey. And I had some frustrations, I'll be honest, but this I don't think it's really a con at all. I think it was quite deliberate on Rosell's part to make me frustrated with the main character, with Leon. I did not like this character very much for a long time. Very stubborn in her prejudices. But that is essential to the message that I think Rosell succeeds in getting across in this tale. So ultimately, I didn't mind that. Actually, I think it's a virtue that, once again, that Rosell can put this character in front of me and make this a character that I want to see succeed, but I'm also very frustrated with at the same time. So well done. That's a complex character, and I enjoyed it very much. So this was really a win for me overall. I'll go over my scoring for the SPFBO. For the purposes of this contest, I do have to assign a number from 1 to 10. And for me, a 1 to 2 is a deeply flawed book that really should have been worked on a whole lot more before even considering publishing it. A 3 to 4 is a book that is also flawed, but I can see the virtue in it. I can see some real potential there. A 5 to 6 is a book that is really quite good, that has some really good things going for it. Whereas a 7 to 8 is a book that really deeply impressed me. Some really amazing stuff going on in a 7 to 8. And for me, a 9 to 10 is a brand new favorite, a book that wowed me, that really moved me, that maybe brought me to tears, that I will recommend whenever someone says, hey, I'd like this sort of a book. I would pull that out of my memory. So that being the case, for me, The Last Ranger is a 8. That is to say, it is a book that deeply impressed me, and it's on the high end of that as well. Not quite in my very favorite of all times, but still a book that deeply impressed me. And it is one of 3 books that I've come across in this contest, actually. No, sorry, I would have to say 4 now. This will be the 4th book that I've rated an 8 or higher in this entire contest. So it's a really great book. I highly recommend it if you're in the mood for a very well done epic or high fantasy that does some good theme work and has some solid character work along with some really fascinating world building. And that is it from me for now. Until next time.